Hello, my name is Jambareeqi, and joining me for an interview is Bill Farmer, an actor who is best known for his role as the Disney character Goofy. Thank you for agreeing to this, Bill.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
So, Bill, let's go back to the beginning. You were born in Kansas in the early 50s. Can you briefly describe what your childhood was like?
Well, I was one of those kids who was always enamored of the movies, television, and especially animation and cartoons. So when I was growing up, I would watch on Saturday morning when most of the cartoon shows were on. And I found out at a fairly early age that I was able to impersonate some of the cartoon characters. And in those days, the classics were like Bugs Bunny. And so I'd run around the house going, oh, brother, what's up, Doc? And my parents didn't know what to do with me, and they were like, our Billy's weird, and then they'd keep me in the basement. But so I was just always enamored of television and movies, always wanted to get into the movies, and there's not much chance of doing that in the middle of Kansas. So I devoted my studies in college to getting a degree in broadcast journalism, kicked around in that for a few years, and then got into stand-up comedy in the early 80s. And then in about 1986, my agent said, well, with all the voices you do, why don't you move out to Hollywood and give it a shot? I came out here, and luck was with me, because about 5 months later, my agent said, do you do any of the Disney characters? And I said, well, I can kind of do a Mickey Mouse. I can do that, gosh, oh boy, the high falsetto, and the worst Goofy as well. And I tried Donald Duck, and oh boy, that's all I can say is Donald. But they liked my Goofy, and so out of about 1,000 people or so, they hired me, and I've been doing it this last 25 years.
How has your notoriety as the role of Goofy affected your career and life?
Well, it was, I didn't know how big a change it would be when I got the role. I didn't know, first of all, if I would just do it once or twice, because this was in the mid 80s, and the company had just, Michael Eisner had taken over the company, and the company was just coming back and getting to be a much bigger, more important company than it was. So I had no inkling of how it would change my life. Now, the nice thing about being an animated character voiceover artist, is that, you aren't recognized out on the street. So people don't bother me, or I have no problem with paparazzi or anything like that. So my life is totally normal in that way. Other than that, it's a very gratifying character because he's such an iconic character. Goofy is 80 years old, and there are very, very few animated characters that have that longevity. In fact, only Mickey and Donald and Disney characters are that old and are still being used. So it's really just a wonderful character to do. And Goofy was my favorite as a kid too. So that's a double whammy. That's really the icing on the cake.
So, apparently you also do stage acting. Are there any plays that you can name that you've performed in?
Well, I recently did one. If the actor Fred Willard, who's very best known for movies Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, Spinal Tap. Oh, he's been in 100 movies. He has a sketch comedy group. And for practice and to stay in shape acting wise, I take his class and we write sketches. And once a month in Hollywood, we get a theater, the Second City Theater, and we put on a show with some of the sketches that we've written. Some are good, some aren't very good, but it's a lot of fun to do. And it's great training. And I just did a play that Fred was starred in, take off on the Christmas Carol. It was called A Really, Really Holly Jolly Christmas Carol. And it's really one of the first stage plays that I've done in many, many years. It was a great thrill to do it. So I just, got off of that. We ended December 16th. So a very recent tour on the stage, as it were.
What do you think is the key to good voice acting?
Acting. I learned very early on from a great voiceover talent, Dawes Butler, who had created, oh gosh, about 40 or 50 classic characters for Hanna-Barbera, Huckleberry Hound, Yogi Bear, Captain Crunch and just dozens of other characters. And he was the first to really instill in me that you are an actor first. You are not a funny voice person. You are an actor. Just the fact that there's no camera there doesn't make that much of a difference. It's a little different style of acting, but it is still acting, and the acting leads the character, because without it, it's just a voice and it comes across as hollow and can be sound like it's read or not well acted. So definitely the acting is the main thing. So anyone want to get into this field, take acting lessons. Simple as that.
Have you ever shared a voice recording booth with a fellow voice actor, and has this affected the quality of your own voice performance? Or do you prefer to record alone?
I prefer recording ensemble for the reason that it's just more fun, and you have the other character to bounce off of. You know how he puts inflections in a word or a phrase, and you can react to that as you would just talking to a friend or something. If you're recording alone, you have to have the director tell you, okay, now let's say Mickey's how far away? Oh, he's always 4 feet away. And you'd play that different than if he was 40 feet away. So, you have to build all of that in your mind. Whereas if you're doing an ensemble, it's a little more organic and you can just react more than create his performance in your head and react to that. For the engineers and the editors, it's easier to do it singly, because let's say I'm doing a scene with Mickey and he does 5 takes. They can take the best of those 5 takes and take the best of my 5 takes and marry them together in editing. And so you get the best of both performances. Whereas an ensemble, you each have to do it great, or one of them, if it's not my good take and it is his, well, we got to do it again until we get it right.
When you do share a recording booth with someone else, is there a particular voice actor that you consider to have strong chemistry with when you perform together?
Oh, goodness. It totally depends on the project and the characters that we're doing. Of course, I work quite frequently with the Disney characters, and the late Wayne Allwine, who did Mickey from 1977 till he died just a couple of years ago. He was tremendous to work with. He was very funny. He was a musician, so he had that instinctive timing that comes with doing this character. And I'd worked with him so many times. It's like just talking to your brother or a relative. The Disney group definitely is the most fun to work with because of just our long relationships together. Although it's also fun, I did an episode of Garfield a couple of weeks ago, and I got to work with some people I rarely get to work with, such as a great Frank Welker, who I love to work with and had done a series with many years ago. And it was like a reunion of several people that I hadn't had a chance to work with. Other people I respect in the business, Greg Berger, and I'm doing a new television series called The 7D, which starts up next year. And I'm with some of the heavy hitters in the voiceover world: Billy West, Maurice LaMarche, Steve Stanton, Kevin Michael Richardson, and directed by Kelly Ward, who also directed me in Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. So it's a combination of people I want to work with and haven't had much of a chance to do in the past, and a director who I've worked with extensively over the last 10 years. And so it's the best of both worlds, and it's just a blast to work with all of them. They kind of bring your performance up to theirs.
Can you tell me what your proudest achievement is as a voice actor?
Well, a couple of different things. Performance-wise, I probably am most partial to a Goofy movie, which we did in 1995. It was a father-son buddy picture, and my son was about 4 or 5 at the time, and he was just getting the idea of what I do for a living. And so it was kind of a bonding thing between me and my son, although I don't know if he thought he was Goofy's son or my son or whatever. But that was a lot of fun to do, and I was very proud of the result. More recently, we did a short called How to Install Your Home Theater. I didn't have very many lines in that, but I thought it came out just wonderfully. And gosh, there's so many of the other ones. Other than that, also I've gotten a few awards in the last few years that I'm very proud of. First of all, and most importantly, a Disney Legend Award, which I got 2009. along with Robin Williams and Betty White and several other people, and they put our hands in the concrete and then made bronze plaques, which are on the Disney Legends lot. And I'm very proud of that award. Also, I was nominated for an Emmy in 2011, also an International Family Film Festival Award for a kind of a Lifetime Achievement Award in animation. And I'm the first voiceover actor to get that award. It's usually with people like, well, it started with Friz Freleng, who started, all the Warner Brothers animation, Roy Disney, Don Hahn, who produced Toy Story and all of the Disney epics, and even more recently just did Frankenweenie. So I think that's his most recent project. And he's a great producer, and to be in that company is just really heartwarming and just great.
Now, I've noticed in your filmography that you've played Junior and Senior George Bush for several cartoons. Are there any other impressions that you can do?
Well, of course, George Sr. has that did that on an episode of a television series called Murphy Brown. And of course, George W. Bush has that kind of pursed lips, that kind of West Texas sound. And of course, I've done a lot of other things. I did Bill Clinton a couple of times on The Tonight Show and those kind of things. There's a lot of voices that I get to do. Political figures are a lot of fun. And then, of course, a lot of movie stars. I actually started out doing impressions of people like, John Wayne and all of those classic movie actors, and Jimmy Stewart as well. And you pick this stuff up just by being I guess a fan. So you get to play with these voices a lot.
If you could take on the role of any cartoon character at all, who would you choose?
Oh my goodness. Goofy was my favorite, so I kind of, hit gold with that one. Of the Warner Brothers characters that I voiced over the last, occasionally I'll voice, Foghorn Leghorn, who's one of my favorites for Warner Brothers. He's got that southern voice there. I'll say there, boy, and, oh, brother, I've done Bugs on an episode or two of Robot Chicken. And Bugs is great, but Foghorn's probably my favorite one from the Warner Brothers gallery.
What's the most difficult process for you in voice acting?
Well, it's the auditioning, because there's about 100,000 people that are trying to do this out here, and you're competing against them to get new roles all the time. And this is like the major leagues. There's no minor leagues in Hollywood. You're auditioning against even big celebrities, Tom Hanks and all of those people who want to do animation as well. So the competition is very, very fierce. That's the hardest part of it. The best part of it is when you finally get the job. 99% of it is getting the work, and then the other percent is having the fun and doing the work.
What qualities do you expect from a voice director when you work with him or her?
When I work with a voice director, I hope that they will give me the chance to bring to the table what I can. Since I did stand-up, I'm pretty good at writing comedy, and sometimes we'll ad-lib and do a couple of lines that weren't in the script. Some directors are very strict, no, just what's on the written page. And they want to hear it the way that they hear it in their own mind. And as soon as you find what that is, you'll get to go on to the next line. Others are much more open in their letting you experiment a little bit. You'll usually do a take exactly as it's written, so you have that covered, but then they'll let you do what your version of that same line might be with a little different emphasis, something that they may have not have thought of before. So giving you freedom. And I've noticed that the biggest directors and the most prestigious directors give you the most flexibility. They expect you to know what you're doing. They say, well, let's see what you bring to the party. And they're willing to let you play a little bit. That's what I hope to have in a director.
Are there any particular directors that you would love to work with?
Oh, goodness. There's all sorts of them. Like Steven Spielberg, of course, George Lucas. I'd love to do that. But, I got to work a couple of weeks ago on a series with Oliver Stone, which was a big thrill. He's definitely a tremendous filmmaker. And over the years, I've worked with John Frankenheimer, John Landis, some of the directors that you normally don't get to encounter as a voice actor. Most of the time, it's for commercials or something, and so not as well known directors. But gosh, I guess Spielberg I'd love to be directed by at some point.
Is there anything in your life that you'd really like to accomplish in the future?
Oh my goodness, yes. Get more work. It's because work in this industry is so much fun that you just always want to work more. People always ask me, when do you plan on retiring? And it has never crossed my mind because why would I? I get to play for a living. I get to go in and inhabit these great characters with great writers and great directors and just have a blast. Why would I ever think of giving it up for what? I mean, it doesn't take a great amount of time during a week, and it's just a blast. So it's like, why would you retire from having fun?
Well, Bill, thank you for taking the time to be interviewed by me. I'm very grateful.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
You gave some wonderful answers.
Gosh, thanks.
Please check out Bill Farmer's voice work. He's a very talented man. And if you have any questions for him yourself, then simply email toonhouseinc.com. Head to jambareeqi.com to check out anything that I've produced.